11 o'clock. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. This is a challenging time slot because at the same time speaking right now is, of course, Ricardo, and one of the rooms, and Stephen, and yet another. So thank you for choosing this one. If you just suddenly have discovered that I've told you should be somewhere else, feel free to go. All right. So this is part 2 of. This is part 2 of Perl 6 for beginners. I did part 1 yesterday. How many people were not here for part 1 yesterday? All right, so that you can see on the slides, here they are.
And we're good.
And, okay. There, okay. So now you're caught up, all right? Also, for those of who are getting the live streaming or who are viewing this on YouTube, in yesterday's presentation we couldn't get my computer to talk to the switching device. Today we can, so now you have yesterday's slides as well. So, all right. So where we go to next is very basic I/O in Perl 6. So say is the function that Perl 6 introduced and Perl 5 copied in order to be able to write a line to standard output. If you want to go to standard error, that's just note, and that will send it to standard error. So that's the easy way to get output. Say produces something called the gist, which is a human readable version of whatever it is that you're trying to say. And different objects, different types will have different ways that they choose to represent themselves when they know that they are being said. That's different from print, and this is kind of an interesting difference in Perl 5. Is that still the case? That it's different from print? Print stringifies, is that correct? So if you say to print something, then you get its string representation. If you say something, you get what's called its gist, which is its human readable form, and those two are not always equivalent depending on the type.
If you really want the Perl 6 equivalent of Perl 5, say it's close.
Right. Okay. A convenient way to be able to read a value from standard input is to use the prompt function. So you just say prompt, you say what you want it to prompt with, and that will wait for the standard input to provide a line of text, and then it will return that value and you can assign it somewhere else. So if I go to my item here, let's see. I'm going to make this one a little shorter, make it so you can see. My color equals prompt name color, like so. So it asks name color, and I'll say purple. And so now if I say color, it comes back and it says purple. And it auto-chomps. I think it auto-chomps. It auto-chomps. Okay? If you want to read the entire contents of a file, then you can do that by using the slurp function. You just pass it a file name, and it will read back a string with the contents of that entire file all in one go. If you want to be able to get lines, then you can use the lines method in order to be able to do that. And so here you'll get back an array of lines, or a list of lines, I should say, to be more accurate. And so if you just want to read all of the lines of the file, you can do that. We'll talk about how you can do that in the loop here in just a little bit. The opposite of slurp is spurt. So if you want to send a big long string of stuff into a file and you don't want to bother with opening the file and doing all of those things, then you can just say spurt to a file name and it will send it that way. All right? So now let's go into flow control. In Perl 6, just like in Perl 5, we have separate operators for the different types of comparisons that you might want to do. Even if you don't know what kind of operands you have, if you don't know their types, the operator will tell you what kind of comparison you're going to perform. So the numeric operators are listed there, the string ones are listed there. That's actually missing the spaceship operator, so let me just point out the spaceship operator. So the spaceship operator compares the two elements and will give you back 3 is less than 5, or I can say 5 spaceship 0, that tells me that 5 is more than 0, or if I have things that are equal, that it's equal for sufficiently large values of 2. All right, and so on. And you'll see that it actually comes back with these values less, more, and same. And those are, if we say, well, what are those actually, right? So here we can do what again? Then it tells you they're of type order. Now those numify 1, 0, and 1, so you can still kind of use them in the same way that we did before. The string version of the Spaceship Operator is LEG. Right? Is LEG. And the way to think of it is the Spaceship Operator is testing for less than, equality, and greater than all at once. And the leg operator is testing for less than, equality, and greater than all at once. So that's how we remember LEG. We need to go and add those to this slide. Okay, Perl has generally followed the view that different semantics means you use a different operator, right? And that way you know what the program will do. Operators are verbs, even if you don't know what the data is. All right? So equal always means numeric equality. EQ always means string equality. Plus is addition, numeric addition. Tilde is concatenation, right? But in Perl 5, we had other operators that tried to be clever. They tried to be winning, and sometimes that can be confusing. So, for example, in Perl 5, if you said reverse on a string, then it would change the order of characters in the string. If you did reverse on a list, it would change the order in the list. In Perl 6, we now call the string version of that flip, right? So you flip a string, and if you're using flip, that means that you're talking about something that is stringy, right? And so it's going to do a character reversal in that case. If you say reverse, then it assumes you're doing a list, right? So we can see that real quick. So if I say edom.flip, right, and it comes back as made. And if I say 1, 2, 3 reverse, then it reverses the list. If I said 1, 2, 3.flip, what am I going to get back? I'm going to get a string, 3, 2, 1.
With spaces.
With spaces. It's no longer a list. It's a string. Because flip coerces whatever it is to be a string. Just like the equals operator coerces whatever it had to be a number. Right? Similarly, if I said edom.reverse, I'm going to get a list containing just that thing because it acts like a list of 1. So here, flip and reverse. Flip is always doing things on strings. Reverse is always doing things on lists. And there's no more of this ambiguity about which one you mean. Similarly, with the X and XX operators, right? So the X operator with a single X means that you're doing string repetition. The XX operator always means you're doing list repetition. So there's a lot of things like that in Perl 6 that if you're used to Perl 5, if there was an operator where it could mean multiple things, then we renamed it to make sure that there's no ambiguity. This is another reason why we don't use length for anything. It's now .chars or .elms or something like that. Okay, for if statements, they're the same as what you're used to in Perl 5, usually in other languages as well. You just do if, condition, and a block. And you can have an else if with a condition and another block, and you can have also with a block. In Perl 6, the parents are optional. You don't have to have the parents around them in order to do if. Now you can if you want, with one caveat that I'll show in a little bit. But they're optional, and this ends up being the canonical way that most of us writing Perl 6 end up writing our conditionals. We don't bother with the parents. There's also an unless, but if you use unless, there's no else unless or else part to that. It's just a single block. There's also a given when, which is Perl 6's version of a switch statement, but it does a lot more than just switch between alternatives. The given when syntax is basically given, and you have some sort of a value that is your given. And what the given statement does is it topicalizes whatever follows the word given. So if I say given and a value, then inside of the block, that value that was the argument to the given is now put in $_. It's now the primary topic. Inside of that block, I can put when statements. Now you can put any statement inside of this given block. You aren't limited to just when statements. And these are like conditionals, but if in a when block, if the conditional is true, then it executes the argument block that goes with it and exits the surrounding block. Okay? So an if statement would not exit. But here, we go through and we say prompt enter a number, and then we say if that number, I'll explain the star a little bit. Just if that number is less than 0, we say negative and we exit the block. If we didn't exit the block, then we check to see if that number is greater than 0, and if it is, we say positive and we exit the block. And then for default, if we get to this point, then we do default, we say 0, and do we exit the block still? I don't remember. Sure. Yeah, we exit the block, right? Now, in between those when statements, I can do other print statements, I can do other things as well. So when is basically do this test and then exit the surrounding block. Now, exit the surrounding block is a little more magical than that. It means exit the surrounding block that's set $_. So if you have a when nested in something else, it will actually go to the block that's set up the $_ to be able to do that. Okay, so that's given when. It's really cool. What makes it even cooler is that these conditionals here are in fact a smart match. Now, my talk doesn't go through all of the wonderfulness that a smart match is. It's an incredibly cool feature. But you can actually do all sorts of tests in this in that part, like testing for type and testing for equality and or a specific value, just by putting that as the argument to the when statement. All right? Yes?
Two things. One, from the previous slide, why rename CMP from Perl 5? Was there a reason not to keep it the same?
We still CMP for something else.
Yes. CMP does a different type of comparison.
It does generic comparison with any type, not just.
And this one, could you alternatively implement this using the Spaceship Operator, sometime mapping those, less more same values to these outputs?
More than one way.
Yeah, we just have to set up a hash and then do a lookup.
Oh, no. Let's just see if I can do something like that. Space P6. So I'm going to I guess default is the last one, right? But I could say that same, right? That would work. Right here, instead of topicalizing the number, I'm topicalizing the result of the spaceship. And then saying when less, when more.
Is the precedence okay there? Is the spaceship going to be inside the prompt call?
Yes.
Well, I was imagining you could also do it without even using the given when in that case, or they're just, doing a hash lookup of those three values.
Thank you. I'm sorry, do I? Yeah, you could do it that way as well, but
What fun is that?
this reads to me better, right? Given this test, and here we tested for 0, but if I was testing for something else, like let's say if I want to test for like 10, right?
Now in this case, there's only three outputs. You consider default to be more readable than saying when same?
I just did it. No, go ahead.
Just personal preference.
I mean, if I was being really paranoid about it, I would write it this way.
When I say default, what happens?
Because I don't know that the spaceship operator will always give me less, more, or same. I kind of know for these two values.
It could give you a
But
failure.
I could get a failure. It could have been overloaded with another meaning by somebody else. Right? So, if I wanted to be a little bit more, in Perl 6, I always worry about when people say, such and such, because I know that you don't know. because Because there are so many ways that the language can be changed and mutated. Now it is scoped, that's the point of Perl sets. But there are times when you
If it
don't.
was a different operator, it would be somewhere in the outer lexical scope.
Correct. And where I learned that, in my particular case, was in dealing with inheritance for regular expressions, because regular expressions are done with methods. And we often look at a regular expression, which ends up becoming the method call, and everybody says, well, you can optimize this because you know blah, 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 blah. And the answer is no. As soon as somebody derives a new grammar, I don't know. And so that's, there's a lot of stuff that's like that. Anyway, next thing. Oh, I didn't get to the stars. So that star is called whatever. That is its name, it's whatever. And it's used as a placeholder when we want to have some dwindiness and we want the compiler to figure out whatever it is that we need. So in this case, the star ends up becoming the topic. It says, give me a prompt, and when whatever it is less than 0, when whatever it is greater than 0, and so forth. And that star gets used in a lot of different places. I'll go ahead. I said I wouldn't do too much cool stuff, but I'm going to do this to kind of give an idea. So if we wanted to get an element from the end of an array, right? So my A equals, and let's just do 1, 5, like so. Actually, let's do some names here. Apple, banana, cherry, right? So I have this. Let's say I want to get the last element from the array. Then the way to do that is to say A whatever minus 1, right? And that whatever there is a placeholder that says, well, what would we naturally think of as being here? And it's the length of the array. And so it tells me, give me the element that is at the position, in this case, 4 minus 1. So that would give me the first element from the end of the array, and I see date. But we're not limited to just doing the minus sign there. Let me push another element onto that. So let's put just root. So now we can see that @ A has that in there. So I can even do things like say, give me the element that's in the middle. Right? So that's whatever the length of the array is divided by 2. And you can do even bigger math and stuff like that to be able to put things in there. So this star has a meaning, and you'll see it used in different places, that whenever we just want to we need to put something there, we want the Perl to figure it out for us, then whatever is the way to do it. It's also used for infinity. So actually I'll do that when we get to ranges.
Can you do a caret star for the minus 1?
I hope this doesn't break my computer. No.
It gives you, it's caret star is
Oh, it's
a
a
range
range.
up to the end. So yeah, it's doing exactly what you asked it to.
Oh yeah, it is.
I just didn't realize what it was asking.
Yes,
But
it is.
But in that case, you just leave off the caret, because star means everything too.
Right. Yeah,
It is contextual. Whatever you're passing the star to decides what its meaning is.
So I can I? Will this work? Everything but the last element?
That should work.
There you go. Everything but the last element. So to read that, star minus 1 gives me the length of the array minus 1, right? And then the up to operator says give me a range going from that to the thing before it. And so that's everything except for the last element, which looks kind of nice because it's a knot.
So if you want to be crazy and do caret star dot dot caret star, that would give you the last element in the list?
Try it and see.
Yeah.
Try it and report back. Yes.
So what's the distinction there between star minus 1 and just star? In one case it means the length of the array, and in the other case it means the full range of the array?
That's correct.
Okay, and it's determining that just whether you're applying arithmetic to it or not?
Whether, yes.
The minus knows to do something different with the star than the array subscript does.
The question is, what's getting the star as the argument?
It's actually a way of writing an inside-out function. And when it dispatches to the subscript, it says, oh, this is a function, I will call it with the last argument, with the full array. But if you call it with a var star, the subscript says, oh, they called it with a var star, they want everything. Okay. So it really does mean whatever in context to whatever you pass it to.
Yes?
Could you just do it without a star, just write it on this one?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
I sure can. It says don't do that. So if you use a var subscript, then you now get a failure.
The discontinuity we disallowed.
Right, right. So then, so then the question becomes, often what I would do, probably not the best programming practice, but if you just went and indexed backwards, then you actually end up, looping around the array and stuff. So you can do modulo arithmetic here.
Yeah, just use star percent.
Yeah, you can do star
Or no, whatever.
Something-
Subscript percent star.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that you can do where it just means you don't have to type a lot of stuff. So you'll see a lot of whatevers in Perl 6, which is our yada yada yada, whatever. All right. Okay, the loop statement is for writing an infinite loop. And so you just say loop and put there, and it does it forever. And if you're really old school and you like C-style loops, then that's the way you do it with the loop statement as well. You just put the parents, and then you can have the initializer part, the testing part, the conditional, and then the iterative part. The while loop is pretty much as we've all become used to. So it's while, conditional, block with whatever you want to have done. There's also an until, which is the same as while, but reverses the sense of the test. So while does something as long as something is true, and until does something does things as long as it's false. There are also do forms of these, so that there's a repeat, right? So you can say repeat, block, while, blah, 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 and repeat, block, until, blah, blah, blah.
The star do something similar to those loops?
The star usually makes sense within those loops.
Yeah. Loops don't know about star.
And correct.
Does the repeat require either while or until?
Yes.
Yes. Though you can't really hoist the conditional up to the front and it will still test it again.
You can say repeat while whatever and then a block.
And that'll still always do it.
It'll still do it once and then do the test. Yes.
The loop form where you did the traditional for loop.
Yeah.
Do you have to have the parents?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You have to have the parents. It's the one place where you have to have the parents for conditionals and stuff because it's more than just one conditional.
We could fudge it, but
No.
There's no need.
Larry can fudge it. Damien can fudge it. There will be modules to fudge it. It will not go into Recruiter.
no, we actually want to discourage it. So
Exactly. All right. Now, you can do pointing blocks with while and if and these other things. And so what happens is, so we've been doing blocks, but you can do pointing blocks. And I'll talk a little bit more about pointing blocks in a little bit. But this says while prompt, blah, 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 blah. And the pointing block, the pointing arrow there says take whatever the value of this test was and stick it in a variable called $T. And so this simultaneously gets the prompt and then inside of the block associates it with this variable $T. So you don't have to do a lot of whatevers, you don't have to do assignments within the while, you can just do it, and it still does all of the testing that you would have done.
We don't need hidden fake blocks like Perl 5 does.
And it's the actual value before, like, if you do that with an until, it's not going to give you the inverse ranking, right?
It gives you what came back from here, not its Booleanness. So if you did until, it would probably fail. It would probably never enter the block. Unless whatever you entered was the empty string.
It might be a very interesting empty string.
Or, I don't know, just find it. Oops. Enter something, ABC. Yeah, it stopped right away. So, because it was true instantly. Thank you. Really, I'm only halfway.
Do that same thing with repeat.
Repeat until. So it didn't say. It didn't say, that's where it said new, because it wasn't actually,
Wasn't about anything yet.
yeah, and now it's doing the until. And so when I type something in, it'll stop. All right,
Let's try 0.
yeah, let's don't do weird cases like that. All right. I'm gonna skip the try and see parts. And the slides will be up on the thing, so if you want to go back and do those, you can. Okay, then there's the for loop. So the for loop is the way to do iteration in Perl 6. And you can use it to iterate over anything that makes sense to iterate over, and you can use it to iterate things that don't make sense to iterate over, and it will do its best. Right? So the canonical form for iterating over an array is something like this. You say for your array, @sign tasks. You do the arrow. You say what you want the value to be stored in inside of the block, and then you have a block, and you can go and do whatever you want to do within that block. If you don't have a pointy block there, if you just put a bare block without that, then it will of course go into $_ just like we're often used to. But the arrow, the pointy block, is a way of being able to say what you want the iterator variable to be inside of the for loop. Okay? So very, very handy. Ranges are also very common. We'll want to loop over a range. And for those of us who like to have code that is at least somewhat self-documenting, it's a real pain to say, do something from 0 to 6 when what I'm really trying to say is do something 7 times, because the number 7 doesn't appear there anywhere. And so then to get around that, you can say, oh, well, let's do things, from 0 to 7 minus 1, which really looks ugly as well. The range operator is really nice with the hat. This means do something. This is saying up to 7 times, effectively, and it produces a range from 0 to 6. Do I have? Yeah, here it is. So here are ranges in Perl 6. All right, so range is another type in Perl 6. If you use the 2 dots, then you're creating a range. And you're creating a range between a pair of numbers, and they increment by 1. End of story. All right?
Oh,
Yes?
there's more.
Well, unless they're alphabetics, okay.
Well, and also they really are just intervals.
Right.
If you test against them, you can match 1.5.
So,
It's not an integer.
correct.
They are not integer ranges except unless you use them as integer ranges. Is what I'm trying to say.
So, if I have a range like 1 to 5, and I say, what is that? It's a range. This is a type. Just like pair was a type when we were talking about things that go into hashes. And I can assign a range to a variable. Right? And so you'll notice that A is a scalar, and I assigned it a range, and if I say what's in that scalar, it's actually the whole range. That's a single object. It is not the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's because that expansion comes later. Devin, you had a question? Or?
Well, do the parentheses also create list objects?
No.
Never?
No.
Commas create those numbers.
Correct. 2 parents create empty lists.
Well,
Yes, but yeah, parents are not list constructors. Commas are list constructors. I just did if I had said, say, 1.5.what, the .what line's tighter than the range, and so.
So if your empty parent's not going to be a list.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So ranges are first class types in Perl 6, and that means a number of different things. One of them is that you can smart match against them. So if we want to test if a number is inside a certain range, then I can say is 3 in the range of 0.10, like so, and it will come back and say true. And it didn't actually have to do the expansion of 0.10 to determine that. In fact, if I say it's 3.5 in the range of 0 to 10, it comes back and says true. Even though if I were to expand that range into a list of integers, 3.5 wouldn't exist in there, right? That's what we mean by ranges are continuous. There are also forms of the range operator that are inclusive and exclusive. So 1.10 means the range from 1 to 10, including 1 and 10. But if you put the carets on either side of the range operator, then you're saying exclude that endpoint from the range. So 1 caret dot dot 5 means 1, but not including 1 up to 5. And 1 dot dot caret 5 means 1 up to 5, but not including 5. And if you do the that thing in the middle, or the cat ears, then that means the range from 1 to 5, but not including 1 or 5. And again, it's continuous. So 1.1 is in this range, even though 1.0 is not. And then we have our shortcut notation, the caret 5, which is the same thing as 0 dot dot caret 5, which means everything up 0 up to 5. And there's a typo in that slide, isn't there? There should be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 1, 2, 4. Gotta go fix that.
It was unique Fibonacci.
Apparently. No, that's not Fibonacci. That's...
Well, up to 2 it is.
Well, it's the range from 0 to not that 5 up to 1.
Maybe it's the 3 element Fibonacci.
It could be.
So,
Anyway, they weren't when Jonathan made the slides, so I'll go and fix them. All right. The really nice thing about the pointy block syntax is that you aren't limited to having just one iterator variable. You can have multiple of them. And so if you put multiple variables after the arrow, then that means take n at a time from the list instead of taking one at a time. So in this case, I have a set of capitals here, which is key UK, value London, key Slovakia, value Bratislava. And by doing .kv on that, that gives me a list. And that list is going to be key, value, and it's flattened. Right, so let's just put this in so I can have it here.
You don't need friends around that?
No, it's a list assignment.
yeah, in Perl 6, you don't need friends on the right side for this assignment.
The compiler knows the thing on the left-hand side is a list, so it treats the right-hand side as a list.
Oh, man.
Okay. And so if I say, what is KV for this, you'll see that it gives me, let's do it as .Perl here. You'll see that what I get back is Slovakia, Bratislava, UK, London. That's my list, right? And if I'm going to iterate over those, I don't want to take them, I want to be able to take them 2 at a time. And so by doing it this way, I can say capitals.kv and put the first thing that I get in the list into country, the second thing that I get into city, go and do the loop, go back up to the top. The next thing that I get in the country, the next thing in the city, go and do the loop. And so it's always grabbing them 2 at a time to be able to grab things. Yes?
What had the dot sequence on there?
Because KB is producing something that is, what is that?
It's a list that you can only read once.
Right. Right.
What happens if you modify it to hash while you're reading it?
You don't want to do that. I said there's some things we don't want to do. Try it and see. But my initial compiler language person is it's undefined.
Including deletes?
It's undefined, right? Until somebody points to me in the spec where it is defined. I think it's undefined. Yes?
I noticed that when you did it in REPL, you put the UK variable, Slovakia.
There was no reason for that other than my fingers hit the quotes. Because I sometimes work in languages where the fat arrow doesn't auto-quote the thing on the left. So it's muscle memory there.
Fat arrow is the only place that does auto-quoting.
In Perl 6, right? But sometimes I just do it out of habit and I didn't want to backspace to fix it. All right. What's really nice, and I use this a fair bit, is that you can use this .kv method on arrays as well. And in other words, what it does is it gives you the index of the element followed by the actual element for the array. And you can then break that out so that you have the index of the element, in this case goes into .num, and the value of the element goes into .task. And so now you know for every iteration through the loop what the value was in the array, but you also know where it was.
So we don't have any magical variable that gives you the current index of the loop. You don't need it.
So that's just, I think I have my other array here, or did I exit out? Yeah.
Is this equally undefined if you out of the array?
I'm gonna,
Or is that more like you're going through indexes so it can actually say it's
what you're really doing with .kb is you're producing an iteration, which is a set of elements. So if you edit the array, I don't know what that does to the iteration. But I will work and find out.
We probably reserve the right to change its behavior.
Right.
By the way, this for each still exists.
For each still exists, it does not, it's just for. So if I ask for a.kb, you'll see I get the indices and things, and so I can loop through it for a.kb into key, and I tend to do just key and value. Like so, and you can see I get the indexes and values very, very easily that way. Alrighty. So you can take 2 or 3 or more. Then of course the question becomes, well, what happens if you're taking 2 at a time and you pass it in a list with an odd number of elements, right? And the answer is that on that last iteration you'll get an error because it'll say I need 2 elements and there's only 1 there, and it won't actually work. So let me borrow this code here. Who is this? Jane, Jill, Johnny, Jimmy.
You can't cut and paste out of the presentation.
Yeah. And I'm just going to do the odd number here. For dancers, pick. Okay, so what does pick do? So pick will pick a random thing out of a sequence. All right. So if I just say dancers dot pick, then it will pick one out at random.
Does it remove it?
It does not remove it. Okay? It does not remove it. But okay, but if I say pick 3 things at random out of the list, then it will pick 3 things but never the same thing twice.
So with removal in that case.
In that, right. So it doesn't change the value of dancers. It gives me a list where I picked 3 of them. All right? If I want to pick, if I just want to shuffle everything up, I want all of the dancers to be picked in some random order, then that's where we use the star. Right? So this says, pick out a list of the dancers, and every time I run this, I'll get a different sequence. Right?
If you want with replacement, the verb is roll instead of pick, as in dice.
So if I wanted to do like the standard 1.6, roll it a dice once. Yeah. Our precedents. They just need to roll. That's all that.
You're on a roll.
I'm on a roll. Really? Okay, so here I'm rolling a 6-sided die, right? If I want to roll it 3 times.
How's that different from using pick there?
If I want to roll it 8 times, that's what we mean by with replacement. If I say pick 8 times, it can only pick each number once.
Why don't you say reduce? Why replacement?
Okay, he said replacement, so I followed.
That's the
Yeah.
standard mathematical.
Yeah. So anyway, so roll. I can go through and say roll the dice 100 times, and it'll do it.
That's a big Yahtzee game.
It's a- Right. Anyway, so if I go back to my dancers and I say, give me a random sequence of dancers, right? So if I want to randomly pair these up with my for loop, then I can do something like this. 4 dancers in some sequence, give me 1 dancer and another dancer, and say these 2 dance together. But if I have an odd number of dancers, then I can end up with an error. And I'm going to call them D1 and D2 here. So here we see that Jill dances with Jane, and Johnny dances with Jenny, and somebody got left out.
Could you make each have a default?
Yes, so we're going to do that here in a second.
Oh,
Right?
What if you wanted to match the genders up?
Then there's not sufficient information in this particular model to be able to do that. fail.
Yeah.
So, yes?
Is that a fail or a die? Aren't the questions?
It's fatal.
Fail.
Okay.
So you can capture it.
So you can capture it.
Fatal.
Fatal?
Yeah.
Oh, it's fatal?
It's a die?
It's a die.
Okay, so it's a die. Or do that by fixing it here. All right. So this arrow notation that we see here is actually a general purpose thing. It's not part of the for statement. It's not part of the while statement, right? It's actually just a place where wherever we put a block, we can pretty much put a pointing block, all right? And a pointing block is just introduced by the arrow, which is a hyphen followed by a greater than sign. And then after that, you can put variable names and so forth. And if you do that, you get a callable piece of code, but that callable piece of code has parameters. And so what you're doing is you're saying, I want to have a code block, but I want it to have these two parameters. And so when it's called, it expects to have that number of arguments that go into the block, and then it will assign them or bind them into the parameters. So in this particular example, we have a scalar variable, and we're setting it to be equal to this pointing block. Right? So that becomes something that we can call. And then later in our program, we can say $greeter, which is our pointing block, and we can use the parentheses, which means we want to invoke it. And we pass the arguments. And so in this case, the HEJ, which is probably some language that I don't know, goes into greeting, and Carl goes into name, and we end up saying the greeting, comma, and the name. Right? So pointing blocks are like subs. They're not subs, in that you can give them parameters. Right? And so, of course, we can just do the same thing with subs. So the way to declare a sub in Perl 6 is you have the keyword sub, and you follow that with the name of the sub. And then if you like, and believe me, you like, you can use parentheses, and you can name the parameters of the sub. And these are the things that will receive the arguments for that sub. So this is truncate, and we will have one parameter, which is called text, and then we'll go through and execute this particular block of text. In this case, we're checking to see if text has more than 100 characters, and if so, we will do a substring of the first 10 followed by ... And if it does not have more than 100 characters, then we just return the full text. It's a truncation in case it's really long. Jonathan, right? All right. So the question, bang, bang is the new version of the ternary operator. So question colon in Perl 5 and C and lots of other languages has become question, and colon in Perl 6. I really like this.
Bang, 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 bang.
I'm sorry, what?
You said phone call.
I'm sorry, bang, bang, sorry. I really like this because, first of all, if you were in yesterday's session that I did, the question mark always means things that are true, and the exclamation point means things that are false. So this reads, check to see if text.characters is greater than 100. If true, do this. If false, do that. The other thing is that they're doubled, just like the other short-circuiting things, where you do one thing or another, like the double vertical pipes and the double ampersands. They're doubled just like that to say there's some short-circuiting taking place.
There's some code that's optional.
Right.
Optionally.
So I really like that. Once you've declared a sub, you can then call it. And you would call it the way you expect. So name of the sub, parent, or whatever argument you want to pass. Or if you don't like doing the parent, you can do the name of the sub and pass whatever arguments you want there. They're slightly different, but pretty much the same. Yes?
Actually, it looks to me like there's danger to some of us sloppy. When you declare it sub, you don't have to have the parent follow the name.
No, you
have
have
space.
You can have spaces there.
Okay. But when you call it the parents, you can't have a space because it's different. Is that correct?
Correct. Next slide. You are correct. You're ahead of me, which is good. All right. So there are a couple of rules about calls. Yes, question?
I was going to ask this question, but the other one I had was the pointing blocks, can they have named parameters or only positional?
They can have name parameters. In fact, we'll see that in just a second if I have time. I have time. All right. So there's a couple of very consistent rules about how cars are called. If you have a bear word or a name, and it's followed immediately by a parent, then you are making a function call. Right? Doesn't matter if that bear word is a keyword. Right? So if I see if, and a parent immediately after it, I'm calling a subroutine called if. So if somebody declares a subroutine called if, then that's the one that would get invoked.
Obviously, it's an interface.
All right? So anytime that you have a bare word followed immediately by a parent, that means it is a subroutine call or a function call. It's called. Right? So it even meets keywords, and you can even see that here. If I say if 3 greater than 5 and do something, that probably won't do it, but right there, right, it'll tell me undeclared routine if. All right. The other rule is that if you have a subroutine name and you follow it by white space, then you are passing a list of arguments. And the parents, if you have them, are the first in that list of arguments. Right? So here, if I say substring craft1, then substring is being called with 2 arguments, craft and 1. If I say substring with a space, craft and 1, then substring is being called with 1 argument. That 1 argument happens to be a list of 2 things. All right? So you can't just arbitrarily space your arguments out and have parents. It's different from the Perl 5 rule, the way that calls are done. So you have to, you kind of, anytime you put a parent after this, then you are always getting a subroutine call, and anytime you put a space back, you're getting a subroutine call, which is always being passed as a list.
If it was looking for one Slurpee argument, both those would be the same.
Yes, it would end up flattening that.
It's actually a more general rule than just the parentheses. It's
Right.
a postfix operator versus any infix operator.
Okay. So in the truncate sub that we had earlier, you'll notice there was no return statement. The last thing that is executed ends up being the return value of the sub. You can be explicit about it by saying return. Return, of course, is an exception. Basically, it interrupts flow of control, so if you do it in the middle of a subroutine, then it will return out of the middle of the subroutine without going to the end. So it changes the flow of control to do it. Return only works inside of subs, or things declared with a sub or method or one of those keywords. Inside of a pointing block, if you say return inside of a pointing block is a block. So if you say return out of it, then you're actually returning out of whatever sub or routine contained in the pointing block. Right? In the previous example, we had been doing just passing scalars, but you can pass arrays and hashes, just like passing scalar values. 1 minute guide. And so here you can see that I have a subroutine named trim to shortest, and it will take 2 arrays as arguments. And unlike in Perl 5, where they all end up flattening and you have to do references and things like that, it doesn't happen in Perl 6, right? So I'll be able to pass 2 arguments to trim to shortest as long as they are array-like. Note on terminology, which is really useful to know, especially as you're reading documentation. We try to be very consistent about these 2 words, argument and parameter. Argument is the thing that you pass when you're making a subroutine call. The value or whatever it is you're passing into a subroutine is an argument. The parameter is whatever you call it when you receive it inside of the subroutine. So a subroutine definition defines the parameters. A subroutine call says what are being passed as arguments. And we try and be pretty consistent when we do this in documentation, and it makes communicating about things a lot easier. Okay. Just because I wanted to be showing it to Randall's question before I ran out of time. If you put a question mark on a parameter, that makes it optional. And so in our case where we had an odd number of dancers, we can say dancers.pick, and we take the first one and put it into first, and we take the second one, if there is one, and put it into second. And if there's not one, if the list is run out by that particular point, then it would get the value nil. Nil? Any. Nil.
It would turn into
Any. It would get any. Right? So here we can say if second, if we got an actual value for second, then we can say first dances with second. Otherwise, we can say first dances by him or herself. You can also do a default. So if you put an equal sign after something, right? Then that says we use whatever value, whatever argument is supplied if we get it, but if we didn't get an argument for that particular spot, then we will use this particular value. Done, I got it, right? And that works in pointing blocks. It works anywhere where we're setting up a list of parameters, right? We can put the equal sign there. The one thing I didn't get to, which I'll just point to because I'm done, is named arguments and parameters. So while we can have positional parameters, which are the ones that we've been doing, you can also do named parameters by putting a colon in front. And that means that you can pass those arguments by name. So here, this is truncate. It takes a single positional argument called text that's required, and then it has two optional named arguments. One's called limit and one's called trailer. And so when you call that, I can say, here's my text that I want to truncate, and I can set the value of limit to be 11, and that will go into that particular function. If I wanted to set trailer, then I could say trailer, pointy arrow, and whatever I want. See what the next one is? Okay, I'm going to skip that. So that's as far as we got. If you want to go further, there are several places that you can go. So the primary source for Perl 6 documentation, and the folks who are working on this are astounding. I mean, multiple commits per day to the .perl6.org. They are really fleshing out the entire documentation, and an undocumented feature to them is a bug. So go to doc.perl6.org. It's really nice. It's very searchable for being able to search on keywords, on classes. It shows you class hierarchies. Does a lot of stuff like that. There are examples at examples.perl6.org. There's more links for documentation at perl6.org/documentation. If you are really lost, you want help, then go to Perl 6. I know that Disneyland is often called the happiest place on earth. I think that Perl 6 is probably the friendliest place on IRC. So if you want to get help, if you have an idea, then you go there, you ask a question. Usually you will find somebody who will be more than glad to mentor or guide you through, or to gently tell you why it won't work, things like that. They're really, really good. There's also a Perl 6 users mailing list. Thank you very much for coming.